Hello, this is Jerry. I'm playing Oxygen Not Included, and this is my Moonlet playthrough and starting cycle 390. So in the last cycle, or last episode rather, I have changed the location where I chose to grow Sleet Wheat. So here I am in the inverted world. I was originally going to do this in the frozen asteroid, but I chose to do it here. I'm going to use natural tiles where I can, but where I can't, I'm bringing in water. And any tiles I can't grow wild plants or have my pips put that on, such as abyssamite, I'm just digging that out, digging sand as well out. So I've got some liquid reservoirs, or sorry, vents, and that is where water is going to be dropped off. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got at least 800 kilograms on each tile before I leave and go to send water in another section. And I'm going to keep doing this again and again and again until I get enough Sleet Wheat. I need roughly 12 wild plants of Sleet Wheat to make enough food, if I'm assuming that I'm cooking it, for pepper bread. So I ultimately going to have 20 dupes. So I need quite a bit, like a lot. But I'll be able to fill this world with enough wild plants, wild Sleet Wheat plants, such that I'll be able to do that. So I want to build where these doors are. So I'm going to submit bioscan so I get them opened, and then I'll be able to destroy them as I dig down to that area. Okay, in the last episode, you may have remembered I was cooling this rocket down. That has gone down well below the 70 degrees that it was now, more 40 or so, or even less. So now I can get my dupes to board. And although it's not a comfortable rocket, they're not going to have a great ride at 70 degrees like it was before. They would have likely got heat stroke on the way home. I didn't want them to have that. So they are. So this is the two dupes that were on the Desolens. That's the oil asteroid. Their main mission has been lately loading up tons and tons of lead. So that rocket has a lot of lead on it, pretty much the full asteroid's worth of lead. And because it's in a vacuum area on the bottom right, it's not heating up this rocket because that lead is quite hot, in some cases 60 or 70 degrees. Okay, so those dupes are on their way home. No food, but they'll get that as soon as they get home. So in the last episode too, I also mentioned that I'm going to speed things up a little bit, particularly where things get repetitive in some of the projects. And this is going to be one of them, because I'm just going to do floor after floor of Sleet Wheat, or spots to build Sleet Wheat. But there's really two parts to this. The first is digging it out and building tiles, such that I know where to put this Sleet Wheat. And the second is filling it with water. And that the process of taking water, I'm just giving my dupes digging skills and carrying skills, just they can do this quicker. But the process of filling water takes longer. I just have a single pump. I might later on add a second one. But to manage that, what I'm doing is I'm starting to fill the top tiles where I want water to be now. And that way, once the dupes have dug out everything else, I don't have to start on the very first tiles of filling the water at the top. So it's basically just doing it in parallel. Now, where I can, you notice here I don't have 3 tiles to fill with water. I'm choosing to only dig out what is absolutely necessary. And if only 1 or 2 of the tiles needs to be dug out and filled with water, I'm doing that and just using the regular tiles for natural Sleet Wheat location. So the dupes and the Desolens are now back, and I'm going to open this door, and that's going to give me access to a huge amount of lead, which is refined metal. Now that has a minus 20 on the temperature overheating, but because I'm going to be using it in the cold area where Sleet Wheat is, I don't really care. So now my dupes can take some of that material. Just watching this dupe here drop some steel off. I don't know why I had that set, but I'm going to turn that bit off. If you notice that your dupes start carrying some material that you don't expect, I generally recommend watching them. You can just follow them around, see where they deliver it or what they do. Quite often what you might find if you're not expecting a particular material is they might be fixing something that's overheating, continually wasting that material. But luckily that wasn't the case. That was just a bin that I just didn't need that I can turn off. Okay. So in the home world, or the invert world, just get some more solar panels together. So in the inverted world, I'm specifying that I want my dupes to send worn Atmos suits back to the home world because I've got a station over there to convert those back into normal Atmos suits. And what I'm going to do every now and then is just load more Atmos suits back into the world once they've been restored. Also sending a ton of lead over because I'm going to need a lot of that for automation projects of carrying Sleet Wheat back to this world. All right, sending another dupe over to the inverted world. That's going to mean that I've got 5 dupes here. So I've got 5 dupes in my home world and 5 dupes over here. And now you can see I need to move the pump, getting a little bit lower. Now that I'm using a lot of water to ultimately create ice tiles, I need to start digging out further places to get access to water over here. So I'm not going to show every single row that I'm going to create, but again, this is the process. Just looking to make sure that water has at least 800 kilograms, destroying the liquid vent when that is the case. Oh! A little bit of accident there. Okay, what I'm going to do is build natural or actual tiles on the sides of that rather than relying on normal material. I'm not sure if I had sand or something that fell down there, but anyway, it's a lot safer if right from the beginning you just use actual built tiles underneath where you're going to have the water into the sides of the water. So that's what I'm doing here, just 3 up, 3 down. So the tiles on the top, that's going to be where dupes will walk along, and the tiles on the bottom, that's where water is going to be if it's needed. If it's a tile such as a sandstone that doesn't, allows a pip to put a wild plant there, then I'm not going to dig it out and fill it with water. Okay, some turbo speed here, just watching the dupes. Again, it's the same thing, though it gets a little bit different in the frozen zone, so I'll slow it down there in a second. Before we talk about the complexities of the frozen zone, I am relocating a nature reserve. And I couldn't do this before because I didn't have pips, but the pip eggs that I brought over have hatched to pipsqueaks, and they've turned to pips, and they've started to just naturally plant some wild plants around. And all I need is 4 plants in an area with a park sign and such that the dupes always go by this spot, and they will get the 6 morale bonus. So the current nature reserve is in a spot where I want to actually put some of the Sleet Wheat, hence why I'm moving it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a barracks underneath it. So every night and every morning I'm guaranteed to have the dupes go by it. So I didn't have any problem dropping off water in this zone. That's because it's not in a freezing location. It's above 0 degrees, so I can connect many liquid vents with pipes, and that will slowly fill all those spots together simultaneously. But I'm trying to do that now in the frozen zone, and that has some complexities with this strategy. And the biggest complexity is the fact that water freezes below 0. And in this cold zone, that means one of 2 things ends up being a problem. The first problem is that water can freeze in the pipe. That tends to not happen if the water is moving along. So the moment that things get backed up and water is just sitting still in the pipe, it could break the pipe. So that's one problem. But there's a bigger problem. And that is if I'm slowly leaking water in a location that is freezing, it's actually turning to like ice cubes or little the ice on the ground that the dupes can pick up and interact with rather than full tiles. So I can fix that. So right now I'm just digging in this area here, not worrying about pipes. But what I need to do is change my strategy that I was doing above, such that I'm going to be pushing all the water in a single spot. Okay, what has happened here? Some sand has dropped on, I think, 2 of my dupes. I've never seen that happen. I've seen them have one dupe build a tile on another one. I've seen them actually do it to themselves. I've never seen sand fall on 2 dupes in one spot. So, random thing. Okay, getting back to this, there is a need for me to put a single liquid reservoir at a time, fully fill that with water, and then move on to the next one. So no longer going to do this in parallel. On the other side over here that doesn't have the freezing temperatures, doesn't matter so much. So as I dig in this frozen zone and the rest of a little bit of like non-frozen zone, I mentioned that I'm going 3 tiles up and down. I will mention that the 3 tiles down in certain situations, especially if there's a natural tile above it, such as granite or sandstone, I really don't need that. It's just easier this way to put it everywhere, so I don't accidentally forget it in a location where it was necessary and have water spill out on the ground like I had happen earlier. So 2 troops are trapped over here. Something you need to watch when you have them digging too many things at once. So just setting that as high priority so they can get back if they get to the end of the cycle, need food and all that stuff. Okay, so what are my dupes doing in the homeworld? They're starting the process of building a nuclear power plant, which is really just a bunch of steam turbines with eventually a research reactor with it, but also an opportunity to get a whole lot of rad bolts. So I made a video on this where I made it in theory with the dev tools, but now I'm actually having it in game built. So lots of power, lots of rad bolts. So the other focus that these dupes are doing is they're producing all the food and other materials and additional steel. They're really supporting the dupes in the inverted world. And anytime I'm in need of food and oxygen or anything else, these dupes are the ones that are sending it over. So it's essentially a support mission. Just note over here, I've realized I built this power plant too far on the left. So just moving that to construct or deconstructing a little bit on the side and moving everything to the right a little bit. And then back over in this world, just constructing it such that I've got 3 tiles up and down and filling those with water when necessary. So as I mentioned, I'm currently building this nuclear power plant. Started to move it a little bit over on the right. That's why I've destroyed those steam turbines, and I'll start again. Now this will take quite a while. I'm pretty sure I'll have the Sleet Wheat going before this. I'm not 100% sure. It is going to actually take quite a while to plant a lot of the natural Sleet Wheat. So we'll see. It might be possible that I actually have this in operation before. But either way, I don't want to have idle dupes. So while these dupes are supporting the dupes in that mission, any excess time, they're up here. Now there is one disadvantage, and that's a fact. I can see some of them are turning green, meaning they're getting a little bit of radiation poisoning. So I'll see how that plays out. So if you ever want to know how many plants you need to put to produce food, I recommend looking for the ONI food calculator, ONI, oxygen not included, food calculator online. It's the first thing that pops up in Google, and what it is a website where you can actually put in the number of dupes you have, whether you want to grow the plants from wild, such as I'm going to be doing now, or having them grown in a farm. And you can specify even whether they're fertilized or not. You specify what you want to grow, and it will tell you how much plants, what plants you need, but also how much. So for 20 dupes, it's saying I need 211.11. And how much ever says I recommend upping that a little bit, because some of the food's going to be wasted in other ways, either going bad or other applications for calories. But the main thing is I'm going to say 230. I think that would be more than enough to feel safe about the amount of Sleet Wheat that I've got. And because it's wild, I don't have to have any resources. It's not going to consume water. It's not going to consume any of my dupe's time, assuming that I have a full automation around it. Okay, so you notice that I've got another pump there for water running out of locations quickly for that. So probably going to have to get water from the other world. Now I have another problem. So going into this frozen zone, it's not so much the fact that it's frozen that's a problem. I mentioned the water that's going to be freezing in the pipes. I've got a lot of polluted water in this zone, polluted ice, which is, as I'm opening this zone up, I'm getting an issue where I have a lot of polluted water filling the spot where I want normal water. And you might think, oh, why don't you just freeze polluted water? And I could, but it has a different freezing temperature, -20. So I have to make things a lot colder if I want to freeze polluted water. The other thing is I'm at a risk of it thawing in the future if it ever goes above -20. Whereas if I freeze ice and I guarantee that the temperature is always well below zero, I won't ever have an issue with ice thawing. And I do not want the ice to thaw in the future because I'm going to plant sleet wheat there, and if it was to thaw, that sleet would be gone and my food process is gone. So just moving the food over here on the right side. Normally had it on the left, but now that I've got sleet wheat that's going to be growing over there, I won't have that. Also mentioned most of my sleet wheat is in the home base. It's stored in a deep freeze location where it'll last forever. My dupes will send it over here when it's needed. But right now, it's safely stored in the home world in a place where it'll never go bad because it's in a vacuum and it's frozen well below -20. In fact, I think it's closer to -50 or so degrees. All right, so now that I've got that, I can destroy this ration box. So now I'm starting to deal with the excess polluted water. And I built some mesh tiles. I'm going to build a series of bottle emptiers and tell my dupes to mop up all the polluted water and have that, I might as well mop up the water that's over there, but I'm going to have them drop off that those bottles of polluted water here. I don't want to keep it as polluted water in that spot because there's the potential that it'll fall down into the spot where I want to have water. If it sort of freezes in the bottle and thaws again, it'll come back as polluted water. So the quicker my dupes can put it in a spot where I don't have to worry about it in a location where I'm going to have sleet wheat, that's great. Okay, over in the home world, I noticed my dupes were turning green. They definitely are getting radiation poisoning. I'm going to start producing more glass because I want more solar panels, and I've dug out more locations for sand. So I'm going to have to think about this because they're wearing ammo suits. That's clearly not enough protection now that they're spending a lot of time up building this nuclear power plant, as I call it. Okay, so in this inverted world, just building the standard transformer and battery system to get a small wire to go out to the pumps. So my course of action for dealing with this radiation poisoning is starting off by building things on the top that will give a little bit of protection while dupes are underneath it. And I'm actually going to add this extra layer of tiles so that it'll just reduce the radiation a little bit, such that my dupes that are underneath it doing construction won't take as much radiation poisoning. So hopefully have them build that first and then start to build stuff underneath. Now here's one thing that I'm building in it, and I'm actually going to ultimately have 4 conveyor rails that send granite all the way around this thing. This is going to take the really hot temperatures from the research reactor all around those steam turbines to produce power. Okay, let's talk about this. You can see I'm doing this completely wrong, but I'm going to have to change the strategy. I'm assuming that I'm able to, in parallel, drop water off at every single location. But as I was mentioning, that's not going to work because I'm just making little ice cubes everywhere. So this nuclear power plant, by the way, is going to have 9 steam turbines on top and 6 in the midsection, 3 on either side. So 15 in total. So once this turns on, as I mentioned, it's going to produce a lot of power. And I might as well put solar panels on top just to get a little bit extra power from the sun or whatever is producing light in this oxygen not included world. Okay, I decided I'm going to have 2 additional tiles here because the dupes actually spend a lot of time going up and down the ladder. That'll just prevent them from getting a little bit more radiation poisoning. So consuming quite a bit of water in the inverted world just to make all this ice. Fortunately, there is quite a bit in it, so I'm just digging out this additional area to build in a pump. I'm going to bring in the small wire and start to send this to the Sleet Wheat area to produce ice tiles. This is the point where I realize having multiple, you can see a little bit of water dropping in and it immediately freezes there on the left. So I'm going to rearrange this. So instead of having the water drop things off in parallel, I'm going to have it go as more or less like a series. So every pipe is going to go through a liquid reservoir, meaning it's going to fully drop it off at that liquid vent. And only when that vent becomes overpressured, it has enough water there, that is, it will move on to the next. So it will fully flood it, getting at least 800 kilograms before freezing. So this is the correct way to connect pipes when you're in the frozen zone. You want it to go through, in and out of that liquid vent, such that it will never stop dropping water off until it's completely overpressured. So I've got 2 ladders that meet together and they don't line up perfectly. So I've started in the top in the correct location, which is to go in the middle of the 3 tiles on the floor. And the one that I've built way back in the past is a little bit on the left. And that's going to prevent me from building a spot on the left side of that ladder. So just having that whole ladder moved over 1 tile so that I can fill in spots where I've got water on the left of the ladder. So here you can see as I destroyed the ladder on the left and build a tile where it's going to be on the 3 tiles on the left. If there is a hole, I can now have a spot where I'll eventually get some water that'll eventually turn to ice tiles. And that's where the 3 more Sleet Wheat, wild Sleet Wheat are going to be. So there's another problem I'm having here. It's really the polluted water, but it's the fact that it comes from polluted ice. So I not only need to remove the polluted water, but I'm building some bins and I'm going to have the polluted water dumped out, but I'm also going to have the polluted water or polluted ice dropped off in those bins. Because otherwise, if you leave the polluted ice there, they're just going to continually slowly melt and make a mess as I try to vent that with pure water. Again, I do not want to try to freeze the polluted water. I just want to have pure water in those 3 tiles, making ice in the future. On the very top area that I've started with way back, I no longer need pipes there. Well, I will have the pipes for the cooling, but I'm going to destroy everything so that I can rearrange this with radiant pipes that will take freezing liquid all around here. Oh, a little dot of polluted water. That's annoying. I'll have to deal with that. Okay, so that was an easy fix, but I just need to check to make sure it still has enough water. And unfortunately it doesn't. It's below the 800 kilograms. So I just destroyed the pipes. I'll have to rebuild it and send some additional water there such that I get at least over 800. I got a vacuum area over here, which is the spot where I'm going to get a liquid reservoir. I'm going to fill that most likely with polluted water. And I'm going to have that be what cycles through this whole system. I'm going to get it down to about -15, take that through the ice tiles or future ice tiles to make them and maintain them as well as ice, because I'm going to have a lot of automation in the future that's going to slowly produce heat. I don't want the auto sweepers and the conveyor loaders to produce enough heat slowly over time that the ice that I have there is going to melt away. So this system here is not just temporarily, it has to stay operational long term, as long as I want to have sleet wheat growing, wild sleet wheat growing in this asteroid. In the homeworld, starting the other side of the nuclear power plant, and just realizing that I built one too many steam turbines on the top. No, I'm not going to build the research reactor because it's too big. I need to measure out where it's going to be. This is where I realize that it's one steam turbine too much. So I'm going to destroy the one on the far right and just bring this in a little bit. So basically there's going to be the research reactor that's centered around 3 in the center. And then I'll have 3 steam turbines on left and right. And an additional 3 in this zone right here. So actually there's 2 floors of steam turbines, 15 in total as I mentioned. I currently don't have my polluted water being frozen, but I'm building now my radiant pipes. And any of the tiles that is underneath this water, actually this is one tile I had forgotten about, so we'll construct that. I'm going to, in some cases I have igneous tiles. I wish I had made all of them granite. It won't matter in the long run, but granite just interacts a little bit better with to take temperature from the pipes that run through it. So just making this a complete circuit that's going to go from the frozen or the aqua tuner, and just wherever it interacts with tiles just above or just below rather water, I'll have that as radiant pipe. So it's really going to take in that minus 15 degrees, get it down close to that spot, and then slowly as that'll transfer to the water, and the water, once it gets well below 0 degrees, will become a full ice tile where a pip can eventually put down a sleet wheat seed. And that will turn to wild sleet wheat and just grow without any resources being added to it. So it doesn't consume water, doesn't consume dirt. It just continually, obviously at a slower rate, 4 times as slow, versus something that's in a plant that's not fertilized. But it will produce food or sleet wheat that you can ultimately use for food. Okay, so polluted water is melting in this location. And that is coming from, just have a look at that polluted water tile. There's slight animation to it showing that it's melting. And at this moment, I'm a bit confused where this water keeps coming from. I'm looking on the ground, thinking that one of those pieces of ice is actually polluted ice. But that can't be the case, because I have bins that my dupes will be taking it down there, and my dupes have been looking for work. So one of the engineer dupes there got stuck on the left side. Anyways, some point I'm going to recognize the fact that that tile, polluted water, has to go. And not only that one, but every single polluted tile in this area needs to go, because as I said, I don't want to have polluted water in that zone. I just want water. Okay, getting a little bit desperate at this point to try to figure out what is going on, because I see the dupes taking the polluted water, and there it is. I realize there's a polluted ice tile that has been melting. Once that gets dug out, that drops as a polluted ice tile, and because I've been at the bottom for polluted ice, they take it down there, no longer allowing polluted water to go in this system. And now I'm on the hunt for any polluted ice tiles, because I know they're going to cause havoc for me. You notice that I've got a few buried objects down there. They're pretty much gone at this point. To try to dig them out and refill with water is just not worth it. It's a little bit of copper or other material. So if I lose it, I lose it. And if I get the ability to get my dupes to sweep up all the material, then I'll do that. But I'm certainly not going to worry about it otherwise. So I'm now thinking about the line that's going to do the freezing of the ice. So I need to have an in and an out line connected. And I also need to source that with some liquid that'll get well below 0 degrees. So not water, but polluted water actually would be a good choice. So I'm going to have a line that goes down to the section of polluted water I've already been collecting down here. I'm going to put that into the liquid reservoir such that it will eventually be cooled down to minus 15 degrees and then piped around this asteroid for freezing ice. So the steam turbine that I've got sitting here is also going to need to have cooling with it. I'm going to use that freezing temperature, but I don't want the water that's there to go below minus 0 degrees. So minus 15 would be way too much. So I've got a thermo sensor there, and it's going to basically tell the polluted water, freezing polluted water, to go around the steam turbine only when it gets below 30 degrees or so. I'm going to use a liquid shutoff to control that. Okay, back in the home world, while all this is going on, I'm building the floor of the nuclear power plant. And that's going to be where the the research reactor rather is going to sit. And that's also where nuclear waste will accumulate, and ultimately where heat is going to disperse from the center of this zone. So I want, there's going to be tons and tons of steam. That's really hot, so I'm going to need a lot of drywall. Probably one of the longest part of the project is just building drywall all around this system. I'm just building up walls around the sides of the steam turbine. I'm trying to do it in such a way that it'll be insulated so it won't cause too much of a rise in temperature from the hot steam on the inside and the water that's going to be sitting on top of the steam turbines. Okay, so I'm now at the point where I'm just filling this spot here with liquid polluted water and having that sent all around. But I also am out of regular water in this world, and I still need more in several different places. So I've got a line that goes to the home world and providing water from that. So that will, I'm going to have that directed to this spot where I'm going to drop off additional water. All right, and before I get to that, just adding additional radiant pipes down here so that in the future I'll be able to freeze this little bit of liquid water into ice. Okay, Artis is getting stressed out, so I'm going to quickly send them home so they can get a morale bonus. Okay, I haven't spent much time on the top of my base recently, so I'm going to put the steam turbines up here and progress the power system, because this is the only way to get power during the night. I've got a lot of solar panels, but the aquatuners will turn off during the night once they run out of power, due to the fact that solar panels don't give you any power at nighttime. So I've got a steam liquid vent and a steel liquid vent and a thermo temperature and thermo sensor that's going to be made out of wiring that's made out of steel, and that's going to tell my system here to dump in water if things get too hot. I'll also have a battery later on. They'll say also put in water in that zone if the power is low, generating more power, because that water will quickly heat up and turn to hot steam. On the right of that, this is a system that is going to cool off the top of those 4 steam turbines. So it's got a steam turbine itself, aquatuner, and a shutoff with liquid reservoir, and that's going to be filled with water. And it will keep the temperature down to whatever I send it to, probably 20 or 30 degrees would be a good choice for that. So I've got 2 liquid shutoffs, one for the aquatuner to cool the water down when it's needed. The other is going to be a temporary one to fill in water inside that liquid reservoir, because I just want a very small amount of water. Because what I don't want to happen is to swell that whole area with water, have enough power, and it take a long time to get the water back out as steam, and essentially just wasting all the heat from the hot magma. All right, so just a couple random little spots to fill with water. As I search for that, I realize that my dupes are getting stressed out, so I'm throwing in some showers so they can get some showers. A little bit of morale bonus from using those. I would say the hardest part of this whole process has been the polluted water. If I were to go back and do this again, I would just dig out this area, not try to fill in with water, and just remove all the polluted ice, sweep up all the polluted water, make sure, do a thorough check, make sure that's completely out of that zone. Because a little bit of polluted water filling in one of those 3 tiles is causing a havoc, and I'm having to refill several times. So I'm stopping putting any additional water in until I've got all that polluted water and the polluted ice out of that zone. Okay, so that is probably my biggest advice. Get rid of the polluted water, get rid of the polluted ice. Make sure before you start throwing any water down that the two aren't going to mix. A little bit of polluted water in that spot shouldn't actually matter, but that might be the one exception. Everywhere else, I'm getting rid of the water. Also, making sure that the water that's filling up these spots in there doesn't stay in there. That's why I get that liquid reservoir. So I can push water in to fill up a spot, and the moment it's full, I'm going to send it back into that liquid reservoir in a place that's not freezing. Otherwise, it's going to cause my pipes to break. Also going to take the opportunity while this is water to sweep up the material into some bins that are in the area, so that when it freezes, it doesn't make them inaccessible for me in the rest of the game, because I do not want to dig up any of this ice once I've got some sleet wheat growing on top of it. So I think that's going to do for this episode. Still need to freeze that ice, but I've got well more than my 200 and some tiles for sleet wheat.